Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be rude, disrespectful, and unappreciative lovers. Well, something that's always important to remember in a relationship, not just your intimate ones, but the ones with your friends or your coworkers or acquaintances or even your family, is that no one will ever do or say anything to you that you don't invite them to do. And if you have people in your life who aren't the best quality people, or maybe you don't have a choice, maybe you work with some of them, and they sense weakness in you, in other words, they sense that they can walk all over you and you'll just stand there and take it without standing up for yourself, you're actually inviting them to do more of that kind of behavior. And when you're in a relationship from someone and they start walking all over your boundaries and making you feel uncomfortable and violating yourself and your dignity, it's up to you to stand up for yourself and communicate to them in a loving way what it is that you want, and then see if they actually take that and they value and appreciate you enough to the point where they'll actually take corrective action to improve how they're treating you. And if after a while you see that they still aren't treating you properly, then you have a choice. You either accept the fact that this is the way they are and they're not going to change and you love them anyways, or you have the guts to leave and say, hey, it's been fun, but obviously this ain't working for me anymore. What you want and what I want are just, our goals and our values are just simply not aligned, and it's time to move on your merry way. And that's hard. A lot of people stay in relationships a lot longer than they should have. I was talking to one of my old girlfriends today. We were talking on video Skype, and she's kept in contact with me. I usually get a couple emails from her a year, but just recently she broke up with a guy that she'd been in a relationship with for several years. And it was funny when we were talking, it was because I hadn't seen her on video in a couple years. It's like we went right back to the same old playful ways that we were with we had invented our own little language. That's what I love about relationships with different people, is that especially when you're really close with a woman, you have a really deep bond and connection, you really love one another and you care about one another, you come up with fun things like that. It's like your own language, and you take words that you both use and you change the way you use them and the way you say them. And so it's like amazing. We hadn't talked in years, and one of the things that she was saying is, like, I was feeling the same thing, was that it's like technology is amazing. It's like, it almost feels like I talked to you yesterday, even though obviously it's been several years, and we just had that kind of a relationship. We were always really close and a deep respect and appreciation for one another. But the thing is that all of us are susceptible in relationship to staying long past when things should end. As a matter of fact, if you're watching this, either you or someone you know very closely has stayed in a relationship way longer than they should have. And so we were talking about her former boyfriend, and he just really wasn't that interested in sex. I mean, they'd have sex like a handful of times a year, and he just really wasn't that into it. And it was like that for years. And the funny thing is that she and all of his friends, like when they, I guess, had gotten together, they used to joke that they all thought that he was maybe gay because he never seemed to be interested in women. And so they got together, and obviously things were great for the first couple of years, but I remember the last several years, it's like in all of her emails, and I pointed this out to her, I was like, you never mention him. And even on your Facebook, there's no mention of a dude in your life, and you don't even see pictures of you and him. It's just you and your friends or your girlfriends. And it's like, you can tell a lot about people by, if they're active Facebook posters, by what they post about what they're doing and who they're doing it with and that kind of stuff. And it's just interesting because you can actually follow, because I have a lot of women that are on my Facebook. I have a lot of women that are friends, and you can see that when they're really happy, they got pictures of the two of them in their Facebook profile, and then it just becomes just her, or maybe her and one of her girlfriends, and then it's like slowly over time the pictures of the guy just seems to kind of disappear, and then all of a sudden one day the relationship status just like goes blank. You see that it's not there anymore. And a few weeks later you see that they're single, and it's like you can see that stuff. So it's pretty fascinating when you know what to look for. You can watch and see really kind of what's going on in other people's lives. And so the thing I was pointing out to this girlfriend of mine was that many years ago the relationship got to the point where you weren't satisfied with it, and you just kind of went along with things hoping that they would get better or that things would change. And obviously she, looking back on it now, she realized, yeah, when we were both discussing it, but it's hard to do that because when you really, and this guy is a great guy, she really cared about him, he's a cool dude, but at the end of the day, if your needs aren't being met in a relationship, it's up to you. It's up to the person that you see in the mirror to do something about it. If you're working a job and you wake up one morning and you realize, you know what, I really don't like fucking going to this job anymore. I don't have the same internal enthusiasm that I once used to have for it. It's up to you to do something about that to change it. If you're in a business partnership and it's not going well or you're not like the way things are set up, it's up to you to do something about that. Because you don't get what you deserve in life. I know you hear me say this all the time. You don't get what you deserve. You only get what you negotiate. Because I have a sales background and it's really true. And my girlfriend of mine, her problem in her relationship is that in a lot of ways she was being a bad negotiator for what she wanted. And she didn't stand up for herself. And like we were talking about some things that had gone on in her life that really changed over the past year and a half, 2 years. And that I noticed. And I told her, I said, yeah, when I saw you doing that, I could tell you were already kind of leaving the relationship. It's just obviously in the past couple of months, that's when he finally ended the relationship. But it should have ended a long time ago. And that's what a lot of people do. A lot of people get into a relationship and it's good for a little while and it kind of fizzles out. And they just stay in it year after year after year. Oh, because they're staying in it for the kids or because they hope things will get better. I talked to a guy the other day, been married for 30 years, and his marriage was great for about 3 years. His wife wasn't really into having sex because she really got into hardcore religion, wasn't into the crazy, freaky shit he was into, and he's been having affairs for a couple of decades with other women, but yet he's still living with his wife. It's just amazing the things that people do, all because they're afraid. They're afraid to go for what they really want. They're afraid that if they leave the person they're with, they'll lose that security blanket, they'll lose their identity, or they'll never find anybody better. And that's what caused me to get married to my first wife, because it was the first woman that had really loved me for me, unconditionally. It's not like I had to change or become something else, even though there was things about me that she tried to change. But she loved me as the way I was. And because I'd never experienced that, and I'd never really experienced that with somebody that I was really crazy about, even though I love my wife and she was very beautiful, but it's just obviously there was something there, something invisible, something you couldn't really touch or put your finger on. There was a chemistry, a bond, a connection, a spiritual connection, if you will, that instead of ending the relationship, I went ahead and got married. And it's just, getting a divorce isn't a fun thing. It's not a fun thing getting an attorney and going through that process. And because when she gets an attorney involved, it's, attorneys are out to make money by billing hours, and they tend to like to stir shit up. And it makes it hard to focus on your work and your career and taking care of your body when you got an attorney that's constantly sending letters to your attorney, and your attorney's responding, and he's sending these big bills every month, and it's like not getting anywhere, and you just want to move on with your life. It's like, fuck, come on. That's why you got to choose very carefully the person that you choose to spend your life with, because 95% of your happiness or your misery is going to come from that one decision. So let's get in. I've got one email I'm going to go through with you today. This guy's got some really good things that he brings up that were going on in his relationship. And there's subtle things about standing up for yourself and when to stand up for yourself and when to let things slide. And unfortunately for him, he let things slide for a long time. That's the thing with women. It's like they're always testing your strength, but it's like once they sense weakness, it's like if you give them an inch, they're going to see if they can take a mile. Why? Because they want to see what you're made of. They want to see if you'll stand up for yourself and you won't tolerate being mistreated. But if you continue to allow them to do those things to you, to mistreat you, then you're inviting them to continue doing that to you. So let's go ahead and get into the quote that I wrote before we get into this guy's email. And it says, "No one will ever do or say anything to you that you don't invite them to do. When you fail to stand up for yourself and what you want in your relationships, the other person usually sees your weakness. A loving person would help you heal your weakness with support, encouragement, and unconditional love. A selfish, inept, uncaring, or manipulative person will seek to control you and mold you into what they want, and they'll get angry with you when you don't live up to their unreasonable expectations. Demand that everyone who you are in relationship with respect your boundaries and treat you with the proper respect, appreciation, and love that you know you deserve through their actions and not just their flowery language." If after communicating what you want with love to your partner, they still do not change their behavior or give you what you want, you have the choice to either accept them as they are without expecting them to change, or let them go so you can find someone who is ideally suited to you. The right person will make a mutual effort and not let you go so easily because they value you. Those who truly don't value you or themselves, they'll let you go. Let them. It takes two to make a relationship work. Make sure other people continually choose you also. So let's get into this guy's email. He says, "Hey Corey, I just started watching your videos and I feel like I'm learning a lot. First, a little background about me and my relationship. I'm currently 25, my girlfriend's 23, and we met through a friend and ended up going to Vegas this past year, and we instantly clicked. We have a lot in common and pretty much have been seeing each other every day since then." He says, "I know, big mistake." It's not that it's a big mistake, but as long as she's the one doing 70 to 80% of the pursuing, because remember, feminine energy is all about love, bonding, connection. And when women want to bond and connect with you, they call you. They don't call you to invite you on a date because that's the man's job. It's the man's job to be decisive and make decisions and invite women, presupposing that they want to go out with you, to go out and do things with you. So if you're doing most of the pursuing, the woman will never fall in love with you. When I talk to guys and they've been dating a woman for 6 months, a year, or longer, and she's still not in love, it's one of the first questions I ask them. On a scale of 0 to 100%, how much of the initiating of calling, texting, pursuing, emailing are you doing? Every fucking time, hands down, anytime it's more than 30%, that's what's going on. Anytime the guy does more of the pursuing, it never gives the woman the chance and the distance to be away from him, to feel his strength, to feel his ability to resist her, to wonder where she stands with you. Because it's a scientific fact that women are more attracted to men whose feelings are unclear. It's not meaning you're being a cold fish. It's just that when she becomes uncertain or she starts to wonder and that tension builds up in her, she calls you, she reaches out, she sends you a text. And that's when you're like, "Hey babe, it's great to hear from you. I'd love to see you. When are you free to get together?" And you make your next date. So like I said, it's not bad that you spend a lot of time with her, just as long as she's the one that's doing most of the pursuing, meaning she calls you and initiates contact to bond, because that's feminine energy. And women will do that. If they're like 80%, 88 out of 10 on a scale of 1 to 10 interest, they'll do those things right away after meeting you. But if the lower it is, like if it's around a 5 or a 6, they won't do those things for several weeks or a month or so before their attraction level gets up to that point. He says, "I feel like I'm too available for her, and as a result, things have died down a bit." Well, typically when things start to die down, what the guy does is because he notices, wow, she's not calling me as much, she's not texting me as much, when she was the one initiating it. And so what happens is she goes from 70 to 80% of the pursuing, and when she starts to back off, he doesn't back off with her. He actually starts to pursue more. And in essence, what happens is the power flips, and he starts acting like a woman, and she starts acting like the man, which causes her to go, I don't know how I feel about this guy. And she doesn't understand why, but she loses attraction for him. He says, "Don't get me wrong, things are still great, and she calls me and texts me all the time until Sunday, and this is why I'm emailing you now." Well, obviously, if things are really great, you wouldn't be emailing me. People don't come to me because things are hunky-dory. They come to me because shit's fucked up or going sideways. He says, "I went to a football game with coworkers on Sunday, and I texted her when I got back to the parking lot where I parked and asked if she wanted to get together tonight. She said, of course. I asked, great, when are you off? She said 6. He says it was 6:15 and she's been swamped for the holidays. I said, that's fine, I'll just hang out for a bit until you're off. 15 minutes later, she texted me saying she's off, and I started to head over. She lives 40 minutes away from me on the other side of a bridge. I'm halfway across the bridge and I get a call from her, and she says that things have changed and that she was going to meet her friend at the mall. We were originally going to hang out at her friend's house. I asked if she still wanted to get together. Never do that. Why would you presuppose your girl doesn't want to see you? She made plans with you. Your attitude should have been, all right, great, I'll just meet you at the mall then. What are the directions or what's the address? Send me a link through the smartphone. Simple as that. But if she were to continue on and say, it's probably best if you go home, which is what she said, because here's what happened. You said, I asked if she still wanted to get together, and she said it's probably best if you go home. Now, if my girl said that to me, I would have said, hey, we got plans, and I'm like halfway here. It's like, I'm not turning around. I mean, I'm happy to turn around. I mean, if you don't want me to come, I'm gonna turn around and go do something else. But it's not fucking cool for you to do that because we had plans. So what do you want to do? Are you in or are you out? It's simple as that. You got to let her know that she's pushing you up against your boundaries, and you don't like the fact that she's trying to see if she could just blow you off and do something else. He said, or she could also be taking is that you didn't really want to spend time with her. But we got to read further. He says, I was dumbfounded by that comment, and I told her I was already halfway across the bridge, and she felt bad and said just meet her at the mall. The problem was I already felt like she didn't want to see me, and I didn't want a pity hangout, so I told her, it's okay, I'll see you another time. She felt bad and wanted to see me, but I stuck to my answer because I want her to see me because she wants to, not because she feels bad. Well, that's true. So the question is, why was your girl not completely gonzo, head over heels in love with you, tearing your clothes off, wanting to see you? If her attraction level was a 9 or a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, her attitude would not have been like this. So this tells me that her attraction level is around a 5 or a 6. And that's the level where the woman's kind of like, okay, yeah, well, let's just go ahead and go home. And so you got to look at what your actions were. And obviously what you alluded to earlier in the email was that things were starting to go sideways. You could tell she really wasn't that into it. And obviously the reason why you said, do you really want to see me in the first place, was because you could tell there was a level of enthusiasm missing from her voice. And obviously things were happening before that particular moment, and you obviously were in a fearful place thinking, hey, she doesn't want to see me, or she's going to probably break up with me, and you were expecting that. And so because you were expecting that, that's how you acted in your response. Instead of presupposing, of course she wants to see me because I'm fucking awesome and I'm her boyfriend, I'm an awesome catch, you presuppose, she probably doesn't want to see me because she's bored and she's losing interest, she hasn't been calling me as much, she hasn't been as into me as much. It's all really a state of mind. So he says, I felt like this was the case. In other words, that the only reason she really wanted to see me is because she felt guilty that I was already halfway there. He says, but I could be horribly wrong. She then abruptly hung up on me, and I haven't heard from her since Sunday night. We've at least talked to each other every day since we've been dating, so I'm a little worried by this. Well, that was pretty fucking rude for her to hang up on you like that. That was immature. Obviously she's pissed off, but she ain't communicating to you why she's pissed off at you. She's probably pissed off because you didn't show up. You didn't go to the mall anyways. Or it could also be indicative of the fact that she doesn't give a flying fuck about you. And when I look at her actions and the way she was treating you prior to this and during this, it really doesn't sound to me like she's really missing out on missing you. He says, so I'm kind of at a loss of what to do here. I feel like I was taken for granted and disrespected when she hung up on me. I totally agree. So I feel like contacting her would look weak. I agree. Because if you contact her, what are you doing? You're communicating, hey, you can hang up on me and blow me off at the last minute to go to one of your girlfriends because you feel like doing that more. And so if you go crawling back to her, guess what? You're communicating, hey, please, thank you, may I have another? Please jerk me around again. But if she was crazy and in love with you and chasing you and pursuing you and trying to get a hold of you, she wouldn't hang up on you. And she certainly wouldn't let one of her girlfriends get in the way of the two of you spending some quality time together, some QT. He says, please help. He says, we started off very strong and very fast in our relationship, which I know is a big mistake. Like I said earlier, it's not that it's a big mistake, but when you start pursuing more than 20 to 30% of the time, meaning you're initiating contact more than 20-30% of the time, you start giving your power away, and the woman starts backing off to the point where she's not really trying that hard to see you, and her interest drops. He says, is there any way to become a challenge again without looking distant? He says, signed, deer in the headlights. So what I would say to you is, obviously it's rude for a woman to hang up on you. And see, the thing is, it's obvious that you've been allowing her to get away with this kind of behavior for a period of time, because from her actions here, these are the actions not of a woman who's crazy and in love, but a woman who's really not that into you or really doesn't care one way or another. And plus somebody that doesn't communicate like an adult. If you want a relationship to work, I mean, I had a girlfriend that used to get pissed at me and hang up on me years ago, and I ain't with her anymore. And I've never dated women like that since, because I know how to spot that kind of behavior. I want a woman, when she's upset with me, she'll say, Corey, you hurt me. That really hurt my feelings when you did that. I'm so mad at you right now. I'm like, baby, why? What's the matter? What are you upset about? Talk to me. Communicate. And then she'll tell me. Because the average person, when someone else doesn't meet their expectations, that's typically what they tend to do. They tend to get butthurt and pissed off and give them the silent treatment, or just simply withdraw. But like I said, in this particular case, you've already walked away. I wouldn't do anything, because that sucks. Her attitude sucks. She was rude. She was disrespectful, and she didn't appreciate or value your time at all. She was just like, yeah, you can fucking turn around, jackass, and go back home and go hang out with Rosie and her 5 friends tonight. Why would you want to spend your time with somebody with that kind of fucking attitude? I mean, seriously. The strongest negotiating position is being able to walk away and mean it. And if I were you, to me, this is unacceptable behavior. Blowing me off is unacceptable. Trying to get me just to turn around and go home because she feels like doing something else? Fuck that. I don't think so. Hanging up on me instead of communicating like an adult? You can't have an effortless relationship with somebody who doesn't communicate like an adult. That's just a fact of life. That's the way it is. And if they're not willing to do anything to change their behavior, there's not a lot you can do with them. It's just like I was talking about my former girlfriend. Is that, she was hoping that this guy, because he's such a great guy, he's got so many great qualities, she was hoping he was going to change and things were going to get different. But year after year, nothing ever really changed. And about 2 years ago, without even realizing it, she kind of realized that the relationship wasn't going to last. And so she started doing things to take back her own independence in her career and other things. Whereas, they had been living together for several years at that point. And so, it's very telling. But it's tough when you love somebody, because even if you realize you love somebody and you realize the relationship's not going to work and you break up with them, it's still going to hurt like a motherfucker. I mean, that's not an easy pain to get over. It's just like every breakup I've ever been through, whether it was me initiating it or me getting dumped like when I was younger, which used to happen all the time when I was younger, it still hurts. It doesn't hurt as much when you're the dumper, but it still hurts like a motherfucker. And so nobody likes to go through breakups. Nobody wants to deal with that kind of stuff. But because remember, people will do more to avoid pain than they'll do to gain pleasure. So like when we look at these two situations, my girlfriend's and this guy's here, it's deep down we know the relationship is not what it could be. The other person is not treating you and meeting your needs the way you want them to be met. Well, then great. What's the alternative? They were not going to change, so you either accept them, which that's not making you happy, obviously, or you leave them to go find somebody else. But it's like there's that period of time where you got to be single and you got to date, and not all dates work out. Most people like to be in a relationship. Most people don't like to go through the process of meeting somebody to get into a relationship. And so there's that potential pain. What if I don't find somebody better? And so you just stay in it year after year because the fear or the potential pain of leaving and not being able to find someone better, or it being a really long period of time that you go without companionship, that usually scares most people from doing anything. I was talking about the client that been married for 30 fucking years. For multiple decades he's been having affairs with other women those women aren't what he really wanted, but at least they were fulfilling his needs sexually that his wife wasn't fulfilling. So again, the theme here is to stand up for yourself, to communicate lovingly what it is that you want, and the other person's either going to give it to you or they're not. And if they don't, your choice is to leave or you accept them the way they are. So if you'd like to get my help personally, the quickest way is to book a paid phone coaching session. And you can do that by going to my website, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and follow the instructions for booking a paid phone coaching, Skype session, or email coaching. And I will talk to you soon.